Yeah, the crazy drummer. Yeah. So, good afternoon, everybody. For those that are joining, and for people that are still logging in at the moment, welcome. This is the agency session run by myself, Ben. I'm a member of the careers team at Ravensbourne, and I'm very, very excited this afternoon to have Tom Heisman and Mike Barker from ePorter. Both of them have very kindly decided to join us this afternoon just to give some thoughts and feedback about the world of UX and coding and all things digital that I don't understand at all, but will hopefully make sense to you guys who are joining. So yeah, I think it would be great just to start off with Tom, Mike, if in turn you'd just like to sort of introduce yourselves to the crowd and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
After you're just going to go first. Hey, I knew you would. So I'm Mike Barker. I'm a developer. I work at ePorter. I've kind of worked in various digital agencies, product companies over the last sort of 10 years. With Tom, who I met Ben. And yeah, that's me. That's a short version of me.
God, I don't think I can be that condensed. I'll try. Hi everyone. I'm Tom Heisman, and I, alongside Mike, work at ePorter, and I'm the lead UI and interaction designer there. And I guess my path to this point has been a little bit muddled, and I've gone all over the place. So might be interesting, might not be, like kind of the route and the kind of weird ways I've gone.
I guess we should probably start back at the beginning. So spoiler alert, neither of you guys went to university and did a qualification in order to get this career of yours. So it'd be great to find out a little bit about the first job that you had within the creative industry, and has your career since then sort of gone on the path that you expected it to go on?
Well, as I let Mike go first, I think I'll go first. Definitely not in terms of career path and stuff. And I guess for me, it was an interesting one. Like you mentioned, didn't kind of go down the college or university track. I think coming out of school, my ambition was to be a musician. So I actually just wanted something part-time to kind of fund the music. And the one thing that I was able to do relatively well after doing art and kind of design technology was album covers and things. So it's like, well, I was learning the software and stuff. So any job I could get that wasn't working in Tesco, because I was working in Tesco at the time, pay a little bit more. And I landed a job in a signage agency. So they produce signage for Woolworths, and WH Smith's, like O2, like all like petrol stations, all this kind of stuff. And they were not just designing it, but they were creating all the structures and stuff. So I guess it was kind of a blend of product design, but also taking like a bit of branding as well.
Yeah.
And although the job itself was not so good, I had some amazing senior people above me who taught me the softwares, taught me the right way to do things. And I guess was my kind of education into it. And actually coming out of that job, I think I switched my priorities to making music a part-time thing and a hobby, and making design my focus.
So how did you go about finding that initial job within the signage? Did you literally just see it advertised? Was it in the Friday ads?
It was a while ago, so whether it can happen now or not, but I actually saw it in the back of the paper.
Right, okay.
Back in the day where I just circled different jobs and stuff. And yeah, it was one of the first ones that came up that kind of had design in the title. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go for that. Drove 20 minutes out of town to kind of find this huge factory. And yeah.
So, I mean, the thing for the three of us is we're all of a generation where we was, starting to see the sort of invention of social media. Facebook had been developed literally about a year before I went to university, so back in sort of 2005. But things like Instagram, where people are now sort of finding out about jobs left, right, and center, and all this sort of design stuff, it didn't exist when we were applying for jobs. So Tom's gone through the route of of going through backs of newspapers to find jobs. Mike, were you in a similar sort of boat? Were you doing something slightly different?
Completely contrary to what you just said, I found my first job on Twitter. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I did actually go to college. I went to uni to do computer science, decided in my young infinite wisdom it wasn't for me. Went back home and worked in similar kind of rubbish jobs like Tom was doing, yeah. And I just kind of started teaching myself on the side because a friend needed a website being built or something for his girlfriend. Kind of got a bit more interested, and I had a foundation already, but I kind of got interested into it a bit more and more and more. And that was for like a year and a half, I think, that I was just learning basically. And then absolute chance, I saw somebody retweeted, some guy in Bristol. He ended up in my retweets, like in my feed. He had like 8 followers and 2 people had retweeted it. And he was like, I'm looking for a web developer in Bristol, right? And at this point, I was not a web developer in any sense of the word. I'd like messed around on a bit and could like, you know, people that say they're a chef and they can make baked beans on toast. So I was like that, you know. That's my guy.
I love a baked beans on toast. Don't knock it.
I messaged them in the morning, went there at lunchtime, seemingly knew enough to kind of
get by,
speak to this guy and get by. And he was like, it was a really, really small company, right? Like It was a 2-man shop in like a loft in Bristol, survey company. And then, yeah, it just kind of went from there. So I went from there into, I worked there for like 2.5 years, then went into an agency in London, then to Tunbridge Wells in Kent, where I met Tom and you. And then, yeah, it just absolutely snowballed.
It'd be interesting to know, did either of you turn up with a CV to this first job? Did you say, oh yeah, hi, here's my resume?
You know what? I think I did. And look at it, I'd love to be able to see that CV now, because I bet it just said, really hard worker, stacking shelves, loves playing the drums, or something like, you know, I bet it was, I got like an A, a B and a C at A level. I think that's pretty much all I would have had to put on it, and maybe tried to have like.
But it's the idea that you've actually been able to make those conversations and be able to present yourself in a way where you're able to say, you know, I've got, so Mike was saying you've got, you know, that foundation level of skills that you're able to sort of say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And then the employer is basically saying, okay, well, run, see how far you get. And you just kind of, you know, to a certain extent, you know what you're doing, but let's be honest, to a certain extent, you're making up the rules as you go along as well and finding out what is and isn't possible. So in that respect, you've spent pretty much most of your career building up those skills and constantly perhaps trying to prove yourself. Would that be fair?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how you felt, Malk, but like I felt like they definitely took a punt on me. Maybe I think I sold myself in that first interview. I kind of remember going into it and coming out feeling positive, and that I probably didn't have the skills to do the job they wanted, but they could see that they could mold me into something they wanted.
Yeah.
So going back to your CV question, like, did you have a CV? I think what I did, because I didn't have a CV that was applicable in any way, you know. So I think I sent over an example of some work that I'd been doing. I think I may have just like screen recorded it or something like really, really rudimentary, you know, and it's just like, okay, yeah, this is what I've been building. I think, yeah, maybe like, you know, if you can show somebody and you've sort of a bit of charisma, then if you don't have a CV, that can certainly get you by, you know. That initial kind of.
Yeah, so having those examples is kind of going to be, you know, the big cinema opening to what you can do, and actually the title credits that come after it are a bit of a non-starter because they've already seen what was on show.
I feel like you're going to ask our favourite film any second.
Yeah,
it's making me uneasy.
Sneaking around the corner.
Just you know, I need to keep people on the edge, and I'm just going to fire it at you, and you're going to get like a countdown theme tune. So, because you have sort of developed your careers pretty much off of your own backs, you haven't done, you know, you wouldn't have been at university meeting loads of people within the same courses or similar courses. So how have you sort of gone about making industry contacts? Because I know the both of you have had a number of jobs, because you've grown out of some some organizations, and you've moved on to bigger things, etc., etc. How have you gone about meeting those people and introducing yourself to them?
I think the point of not going to uni to study this is one of the things I actually feel I probably have a big regret over, and I think something that would have definitely helped me in the early stages, because I think having that network of people that and you can go to talk to about things or just get feedback, I think it's a really quick way to kind of grasp the concept of receiving feedback and constructive feedback, and also giving it to other people, because you've got this network. So that I actually found really difficult in the beginning, and I think that kind of led me to go into freelancing, because I didn't have that. I didn't have a stepping stone into the next job. The only people I knew were the ones I was working with at the time, and I wanted to leave there. I knew I wanted to do something different. So I actually had to venture out on my own and build up contacts who were basically clients.
Right.
And kind of do it that way. And then I guess going forward, and like to the point now where I have more contacts, I think I've just tried really hard to always bring people in from my kind of social life into my work life. And that's filmmakers, photographers, other graphic designers, coders. And luckily I've been able to build up this network of people that are passionate about what they do, and now have this kind of nice thing where I can just scroll through my phone book and ask for feedback on something, which I didn't have in the past. So I think anyone who's kind of got that to start with has got a really good first stepping stone.
So weirdly, the pub is a really good networking opportunity.
That's why I go there so often.
The expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know, get banded about so much, but there really is a kind of power to that expression. Once you start meeting people and they then introduce you to other people, it can kind of spiral out from that. Do you reckon, is that a thing within your particular industries as well?
Yeah, so I found that I went to like a lot of meetups and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it just seemed like a good opportunity to meet people. Do you know what I mean? Like, they often have free pizza as well. So sweet, like you're good, you know? But yeah, it's certainly the same sort of thing as well. And I guess more and more over the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years that I've been doing this, it's become more and more social anyway, by the nature of like online platforms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think it helps going, obviously we can't at the minute, but like going to meetups, going to a conference, trying to kind of network at that level. I mean, you sort of form those contacts that, you know, you can just have a chat to over like Slack or Discord or whatever, you know. So when you do need some help, that those people are there. And the funny thing is, I was saying to Tom yesterday, like a friend of ours that we worked with at the agency called me up 2 days ago and was just like, look, I need something being built. I need it done by Friday. You came to mind, can you do it? So I helped him out, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's by having those connections that, yeah, it's useful for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Mike got me my job at ePorter, pretty much.
Yeah,
but I was actually.
I introduced you to ePorter.
Yeah. I mean, no, you
got yourself.
You put my portfolio together, no? Yeah, I was traveling, and you kind of introduced me to the opportunity, kind of at the end of my travel. So, yeah.
And the sort of way in which people are working at the moment, they're trying to sort of feed off of the contacts that they've currently made, and some people are having more success because they have made those either through LinkedIn or from Instagram or from apparently Twitter, which I wasn't aware of back in 2005. And I just wanted to find out sort of on a more broader basis. So Mike, you obviously work a hell of a lot with code, and Tom, you're working more on the sort of UX design side of things. In the time in which you broke into the industry, as it were, in your respective industries, how have they changed over the last sort of 10 years and so? And that's a very sort of general question. I apologize because it's kind of a bit of a throwaway question, but it's kind of, the period of time that we are in now is very, very digitally focused, and my guess would be that both of your industries have sort of gone in a very upward trend in terms of technology. But is there anything in particular that sort of happened along that way that's really caught your eye and you thought, actually, yeah, this is where things are going?
Potentially easier for me to answer, because I'm sure, Mike, you'll say after, but yours is kind of just advanced in terms of the software and the technology that you're using. Whereas I think from the design side, when I got into my first proper agency, and they were kind of a branding and advertising agency, so they had a big emphasis on web. It was what pleased them they would show to clients, and it was basically like, even if it was an e-commerce, it was seen as a brochure site, which is just like, make it look as good as possible and people will use it. And I think now, rolling on just over 10 years, it's changed so much to kind of being customer focused and the people that are actually using it. So now this is kind of where the UX side of being a designer has come into play. When before, I think it was very, very much just UI, which is the user interface. And people actually are starting to notice that if they kind of go and do surveys and listen to the customers, kind of listen to their needs and build a solution that works for them, and maybe isn't as visually appealing, maybe it's not a flash site where you can like be on it for 20 minutes playing around, but actually services them better and makes something in their life a bit easier, then they will return and use it more and more. And I guess that's kind of, we're in the like almost like SaaS kind of software at the moment. So it's very much trying to make their life easier. But even if it's just trying, like the Gov UK website, it's very basic to look at, but it's very, very functional and very easy to kind of get to where you need to be because of all the research they've done to talk to people and make that journey really simple. So it's definitely had a shift from just kind of making the web look like a cooler and like nicer place to being a really like functional.
So in essence, there is an awful lot to be gained from actually having something that is quite a simple platform almost, to be able to make sure that, you know, the right message and the right use for the consumer is there straight in front of them. That you know, it's almost like having an incredibly short attention span and needing to you know, complement that requirement effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's gone through kind of different variations. Like there was a rule about 7 years ago that we had in one of my earlier agencies that was, if someone has to click more than 2 times to get to the page they need to get to, you've failed.
Right.
And that rule doesn't apply now, or at least it's not spoken about, maybe because it's more inherent in what everyone does. But it's kind of gradually grown to a point where it's way more customer focused.
I was just thinking about what you were saying at the start, and I think for me, the reason why it was initially tricky to answer is because a lot of the innovation is on the technology side. But as a result of technology innovating over like the last sort of 10 years, I mean, the barrier to entry, or not necessarily the barrier to entry, but what people expect from you is substantially different to what it was like when I was starting. So it's sort of, when I was starting, it was like, you know, I can build a web page and it kind of looks a bit nice, you know, you can click on pages, and that was really it. Do you know what I mean? But now with the kind of prevalence of like iOS apps and Android apps, the sort of requirements have shifted very substantially for like stuff to be far more dynamic, far more, you know, we're building applications, or at least Tom and I are what we're doing at the minute is sort of application development and design and what have you.
In terms of the updates and technologies and things like that, what sort of technology, because from my very basic understanding of code, etc., there are a number of different sort of effectively languages. Are there some that are more desired, do you think, than others, or some that are more specialized than others, perhaps?
I think So if I think about my first proper web job was 2012, and I think between 2012 and 2015 there was like a lot of innovation on the JavaScript side, and stuff came out of that from like TypeScript. They're just languages, programming languages, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there'll be people on this workshop that will understand what those are. So please,
yeah.
If you do want to be specific, please do.
Yeah, I think that's where it's kind of not gravitated. Sorry, it's kind of ended up at the expectation of people's skill set in something like JavaScript or TypeScript or like just general kind of programming has shifted from like they're expecting a bit of interactivity to, you know, fully fledged kind of web applications that, you know, instant communication, like people are demanding like app-like experiences on the web.
Right.
So the main technology, in answer to your question behind that, really that I've seen over the last sort of, let's say 5 years, has been JavaScript. It's just on the up and up and up, and from there you get other languages, and it's not so much just the language, but like the whole way of programming, the whole way of sort of getting other people's code. You know, the open source has flourished like dramatically over the last 5 years.
It'd be really interesting to find out from both of your perspectives, if you were to imagine having your CV in front of you at the moment, is there one particular skill that you would want to identify above all others that would hopefully make you you know, stand out and seem unique to an employer? Is there anything that you can sort of think of that you would really want to be your selling point?
Well, I guess I'm going to be a bit controversial here, and this is just my own personal standpoint and probably terrible advice for anyone else, but I actually I don't use a CV. I kind of
Can we mute him? How do we mute him?
And it's I always have a portfolio, but I've kind of, I don't know where I gained this kind of idea in my head, but I always felt like if my portfolio doesn't shine the kind of employee you want, I'm not the right person for you, and you're not the right company for me. And I've always stood by it. The shortest interview I've ever had was 15 minutes, where kind of opened up. I got the interview by sending my portfolio. I was meeting with the creative director. We sat down. I talked to him through a piece, and he went, "Oh, I haven't seen your CV." And I said, "That's because I don't have one." And he said, "We'll come back when you have a CV." And I said, "Well, I'll probably never see you again then." And it was a laugh. It maybe sounds a bit harsher than it was, but I think I express myself through my work, and potentially not always on a written page. And actually, CV was something that used to give me anxiety, because maybe of like not coming from a college, not having that kind of educational background in this. So I kind of tried to flip it on its head and say, well, actually, I'm going to strengthen my portfolio and not worry about this other part. And I think what I found from the people that have employed me, and just conversations, and also having done interviews and looking for in other people, is something about that person that they are able to express themselves, and it doesn't matter what it's in. So yes, I've put hobbies in, like if it's music, I will make sure that I pair it with a good bit of motion design, and then I can talk about the fact that I'm really into music and I actually chose this to go with this, and this is how it works, and here's the kind of levels of it going. And then
so there's a relationship, you know, between the whole of everything that gets presented to somebody who effectively has never met you before, so that they get the clearest understanding, if you know, if you like, of exactly who you are.
Yeah. And I'd actually say I guess like my USP for kind of going into jobs, and like my CV piece, even though it's not on a CV, is I've always pushed what I do as hobbies, because I think I get really passionate about them. And I think that passion comes across, and people go, wow, this guy could get passionate about anything. It's like, well, maybe, I don't know. I could definitely like do the job for you, but these things really get me going. And yeah. So I think just like, so long as it's you're kind of selling yourself. I think that comes across really well.
I like that. You are your own USP.
So I was going to do a similar thing to Tom. I think when I started, I had a similar mentality, and I was like, right, I don't have a CV, so I need to like show that I can do this in another way, right? So I'm going to build like the best website in the world, kind of Jeremy Clarkson style. I didn't, shock. I recorded a video, I think, like, so I showed the first job, something great, got that job. 2.5 years later, I was like, right, I need to like level up. I wanted to move to London anyway. So I recorded like a 20-minute video or something of me showing this crazy complicated application that I'd spent the last year building, right? And I put it, sorry?
What was it for?
It was like my actual job. It was like this survey company. So it was like a competitor to SurveyMonkey. I was like super proud of it. I spent like 20 minutes working on it. This video, actually no, I spent the whole day working on it on a Saturday, right? Put this video together. The video is like 18 minutes long. It's still on my YouTube. That's why I know that. It's private. You can't see it. Yeah. So I sent off like a pretty basic CV. And I put this video on there. I was like, yeah, check out my video. Like, I'm a YouTuber now. And nobody watched it. Like, I saw the video count.
You put it on private. How is
because if you had the link that I sent you, you could see the video.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah. So I, desperately looking at the video views kind of thing. It's like 1 or something. It was me. I viewed my own video. Right. So that was attempt 1. Yeah. I ended up getting that job anyway. I didn't even watch the video, but whatever. And then more and more, as there is a point to this, more and more as the time went on.
Is it to go and follow you on YouTube?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah. So as the time went on, what I'm trying to say is my CV. I found my CV has become more and more important actually, because it got to a point where, like, I still had a website, but I couldn't really be bothered with it because, in the same way that like often a builder doesn't work on their own house, like, yeah, I just didn't have the time. Like, I was in employment. It got to that period where, so the website was like low priority. And whenever I did need to get a job, which is not like 100 times, but the occasions that I had to get a job, it's like, right, I'm going to redo my CV kind of thing. So then the question was like, what's the most important things like that I would pick? And it sounds cliche, but it really is that top part. Like, you need to hook people in. And I think you need to decide what it is that you want to sell about yourself. Mm-hmm. So when I first started getting into web design, I wanted to do all of it. Like, I wanted to do the creative part of it. I wanted to do the coding part of it. I wanted to like deploy this and do that, and like just be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I kind of realized pretty quickly on that was really not in the short term. That wasn't going to get me very far.
Yeah. You kind of need to streamline it a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like I decided, right, I'm going to sell myself as a front end developer. And I'm going to get really, really, really good at that, basically. So that's what I do now in my CV. It's like the short paragraph, obviously, is all craft at the bottom, like all experiences in this. But the top bit, it's like, this is me, and this is what I am like. This is what you'd get if you'd hire me, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think the further down they read, the less and less like relevant it gets. So
what would be your ideal job, and do you feel like you are on the path, ideal job in terms of, would you like to own your own company? Do you want to be the head of an existing company? Do you want to completely change your career path, whatever it might be? Do you feel it would be, first of all, good to know what your favorite film is, but then also to know what your favorite job would be? See, snuck in there. I didn't go with a big bang. Yeah, to know what your ideal job would be, and do you still see a pathway in order to achieve that, in order to get to that particular position?
I'll let Tom go.
I was going to let you, because then you can have the film choice. So.
Memento. Carry on, Tom.
We had a quick discussion before, and me and Mike's film was both Memento. So I've actually changed mine, and it's a French film called Les Untouchables, which I think I'd probably pronounce that completely wrong, but it's brilliant. So if you can try and Google that from my terrible pronunciation.
I like the fact that neither of you have explained what the films are, which is perfect, because it means people are going to be like,
yeah,
well, I'm going to find out what it's about now. There's no point in describing it and then saying the whole plot line.
Yeah, I'm totally with that anyway.
Memento is, in my opinion, Christopher Nolan's best film. There we go.
Golden. So in terms of, I guess, like career path and dream job, and am I heading down the right track? No, I'm not. And what is my dream job? I guess I've changed.
So I'm assuming your ideal job is going to be a musician, a drummer.
Exactly. Well, actually, you're not far off. It's maybe like laying the drumsticks to rest, but I've always wanted to eventually end up pairing my love of music with my love of design and doing album sleeves like that. That's always been the dream. And to be honest, I might get to that point, do it for a year and think, I've changed now. I now want to be an events manager and run my own festival. So
good opportunity to mention if you do any festivals at the moment.
We put on a small thing, which is a lot of fun and has helped me get a few jobs. So it's a passion piece again. But
the passion piece that still letting you branch out and meet people.
It's like a second job, but it doesn't put that weight on my mind. The amount of organization, the amount of kind of design assets and kind of creative thinking you have to do for it. I think being able to bundle that up and put it out and show a potential employer, they go, do you do that on the side?
Yeah.
That's cool. As long as it doesn't distract you from your work, that's nice. I have never really kind of tried to tie myself down too much to being on the right career path. I think I let my next ambition lead me. And that's very much gone from going from freelancing to the decision of I want to work with other people. So then I worked with other people. Then I was like, this is fun, but I'd actually prefer to do this in a more branding setting. So then I did that and then went branding into printing. And I was like, you know what? I'm really into I'm geeking out on all the technology that's happening on the web. So I went into digital agency, did that for 5 years. Then I needed a break. So I went traveling and then came back and I was like, I'd love to go the other side of digital and almost be focused on one product. And that's kind of what we're doing now, in working with a software as a service. I think the next move will probably be something different. And although they're not really kind of leading into each other very well, I think there's key bits you can take from each one and kind of, I like to think you can kind of add the strings to your bow and strengthen. And as long as you kind of have some understanding or some knowledge and a passion for the next thing you want to go into, it's achievable. And you might have to go for me to actually get into kind of doing album sleeves. And I'm not sure why I haven't done it yet. And I think maybe it's because it's something that's so idealistic to me. I'm almost avoiding doing it. But I probably need to get into something back more into print. So I understand print. So maybe I'd go into packaging and then kind of work my way down. Or just start in my own time, contacting all my musical buddies and saying, if you're recording a single soon, let me know and I'll do the artwork for free for you. Build a bit of a portfolio that way.
We've both, growing up in the same area, Tom and I in particular were very blessed with the amount of musicians that were in around the area. And at one time I was making album artwork for quite a few of the musicians. It was a way to, cover the bar tab occasionally or to get into a free gig or something like that. But like you say, it is an incredibly desirable market to get into, and you can create some of the most amazing pieces of album artwork have become iconic images in themselves. They almost supersede the music that's come through from that. So
that's the thing, maybe it'll be in the future going out on a limb and just again, going back to freelance life, who knows? And I don't let the next one worry me too much, or kind of like that end goal, because I think if you want to achieve it, you can. Like, it just sounds like one of those awful motivational quotes, but
it does.
I think there's a lot of truth
been written in the sand by someone.
Someone's got it written on their wall somewhere, and you will, or something like that.
Live, laugh, love. That's what I follow in life. You know, follow every day by that quote. Yeah, I think Tom's nailed it. Like, I'm not going to add too much. Like, for me, I don't think there's much point in putting too much pressure on, like, this sort of where I ultimately want to be. I guess you just have ideas of what you like. So for me, I really like cooking. You know, it would be great if maybe some point in the future I could take all of my existing skills and apply that in some way, and maybe that's an app or an online platform or whatever. I don't really know, if I'm completely honest, but yeah, I think that's it. Like, you can have rough ideas and just be comfortable in the fact that, you know, what you're doing at the minute is fulfilling, and we'll potentially add to that later.
Having that kind of background thing, and I don't know if you've had the same with cooking, it's probably a bit harder. Cooking doesn't always come up so much in like agency life and stuff, but having that kind of focus in the back of my mind on music has opened doors for me, because there's been times where in the agency they kind of punt it out, like, who wants to kind of own sourcing all the music for these videos we were doing for clients and stuff. And I'd always put my hand up, because it's like, well, I've never done it, but I'd love to give it a go. And then within 6 months I become the music guy, and then suddenly people come to me needing music, and it's like, well, I've made that role for myself. Like, so like, take those opportunities and learn from them, because you'll never do something the best the first time, but you just get better and better and better at doing it.
And particularly within the environment in which we're in at the moment, and you know, there's going to be a number of people that are either going to be graduating this year, or certainly going to be looking for work placements within the summer, taking a bit of a hit financially in the next couple of months in order to get the sort of opportunities and actually reach out to people via Twitter and Instagram and on emails, etc., to say, rather than can I have a job, it's how can I help, and see whether you can get into an organization that way. That might
it's kind of funny, like, part of what you were saying, there was a guy that Tom and I worked with called Alfie, which wasn't his real name, but there was already a Tom at the agency.
He doesn't like to be mentioned on webinars. So.
Artist
a silhouette appears and starts talking. Hi, I'm Alfie. But he, in that sort of sense, he contacted the agency and he was just like, you know, I want to get into this. Doesn't really matter if I get paid, obviously, not that it doesn't matter, but, you know, I'm willing to kind of learn, and for you to teach me, and for you to help me, and for me to help you, kind of thing. He's still at the agency 5 years later. They ended up taking him on full time. So yeah, you just kind of have to contact people, you know, just say, you know, I've got a foundation and I want to help you, and, you know, maybe that'll help me in the longer term as well.
So it's a risk that's potentially worth taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think probably one of the biggest positives that's kind of come out of this situation, and I think our industry knew it already, but maybe not everyone who kind of did it, is like, we can function pretty well working from home. And so, like, all this time that we're not in offices and we're all kind of isolated working from home, doesn't mean that like everything's stopping and employment's stopping. And like, maybe like initially, like, companies are just figuring out how they can kind of
navigate that,
survive and navigate through this. And I think that kind of period is over. Companies should probably by now have their like strategies in place and stuff, and we'll know if they're now looking for people to join the team or whatever they're doing.
How are you finding isolation?
I can't remember my original answer.
I'll remind you if
I love it.
It's got its pros, and I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm quite a social character, and I enjoy the office atmosphere. And in fact, I probably find it quite distracting, because I make an effort to try and go round, like, talk to different people, go and have tea breaks. But
you say talk to different people. It is talk to everyone. You're that nice a guy that you wouldn't want.
No, it's not nice. It's just to like stop myself from working, to be honest.
Doesn't do any work. We just keep him on for morale.
Yeah. But I think the one thing is that instant access to be able to just huddle a couple of people and talk an idea out. And what now is probably a bit of a process, logging in to a call like this and talking it through, then going and thinking about it. You could probably get done a lot quicker before. Overall, it's been successul. Wouldn't you say, Mike? Like,
yeah, I think the first 2 weeks. Yeah, no, I hate it. I mean, the first 2 weeks for me, I was like, like this is just horrible. Because in the same way, I like being in the office. Like, I rarely work from home. Like maybe 1 day a week at the most, kind of thing. Normally, anyway. So for me, it was like, this is awful. At the start anyway, but then as the time has gone on, it's just become a bit more normal, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So we do like a Friday company meeting, which we used to do every 2 weeks. That's gone up to like once a week now, just because I guess the normal like day-to-day visibility of stuff is less at the minute. And then afterwards
as well, because it's demonstrating that the need for that meeting has increased, because presumably the amount of work that's being done is being increased, so therefore more needs to be discussed.
Yeah, and then I was just thinking to your point, like questions are not that questions weren't encouraged before, but I think people are a bit more comfortable asking questions because like you said, it's almost like it's flat, isn't it? Nobody's at the front, nobody's at the back. It's like people feel like they can kind of contribute a bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's positive.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is just I've been really honest with my manager, my boss, and just there's been days where I've found it really hard to get in the right headspace. Probably less so than in the beginning, but the first month, like there were just days, and I just would talk it through with him and say, look, today's not the day. I'm going to come take a bit of a break. Like I'm going to do smaller, like business as usual type jobs. Then I'm going to come back and hit this tomorrow when I'm a bit fresh, hopefully. And by being completely honest with him, it gave him the ground to be like, that's totally cool. I know what you're doing. Like, you know, the timings you're working to. And it's advice that I've tried to pass on to my team as well. Like, because at different points, people have come stressed, like that they can't get into the headspace, but they have to get this thing done. It's like, just take yourself away and like clear your head, because you're not going to get anywhere trying to like push that barrier when it's closed.
Have you found that you've been working earlier or later or weekends?
I found I've started logging on a bit earlier to make sure that I log off on at the time that we used to leave. Mainly because I'm up and like it's just easy to just get to the computer and make my tea and kind of get cracking.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, same here.
Getting away from, it's always just like half an hour before everyone else kind of starts logging on, and you start getting all the.
You kind of get a bit of a head start on the day as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it works for me, but then there's other people that say they don't get into it until 10 and then work a bit more into the evening. Some people are just really good at doing their hours, like
sticking to it.
It's just knowing.
Yeah, like I always start early. I'd rather start early and finish early. Do you know what I mean? But that's not true of everyone.
My final point would probably be never let the lack of a like job opportunity stop you from doing something, because it might lead to a different job opportunity in the future. Play off your interests and your hobbies and do as much with them as you can whilst I guess like the pressure of a job isn't so much on you. It's just coming from being in like this industry for like 12, 13 years. It's getting harder and harder to give time to hobbies from when I started. And even to the point, like me and Mike have a WhatsApp group, and we probably 30 times a year send over like business ideas or like little apps that we want to do. And we get round to doing basically none of them, because we don't actually have the time to see it through. Whereas I think if we were younger, we probably would have given it more, we would have had more time to do it. So just
imagine if isolation had been when we were in our early 20s and couldn't go to the pub and would be able to come up with these ideas then.
It'd be amazing.
Oh,
well, I say that, but I'd probably still be watching back-to-back box series of like US
Tiger King was good, so was that.
And I think it's just I think from conversations I've had with myself, conversations I've had with people I've worked with, and just generally in other fields, I think people feel if they're not doing it as a profession, then it's not worth their time. Where I disagree. I think strengthen your hobbies. So if it's like photography, might not feel like it can play into what you're doing in like a UI role or something, but it totally can. Like, and just because you might not start off great doesn't mean that in a couple of years when you maybe applying for a new job, you can add like a page into your portfolio or even put it in your CV that you've got this hobby in photography, and it might just catch someone's eye and be like, oh, show me some of that stuff, like talk to me about it. And if you're today, it's so easy just to go onto YouTube or like if you can, like purchasing one of the like masterclass sessions or something, even like talking to your tutors, like just kind of getting as much knowledge around a subject as possible. If it's of interest, like I think that's the thing. I think if it's something that interests you, you'll do it naturally, and just don't give up on it. And then you never know where it could like help lead you to.
Nice.
I think that's actually exactly what happened to me. Like, I was interested in something, so I learned it, I got better at it. There was no kind of external pressure, if you like. I wasn't doing it because I needed a job. It was just like, and it doesn't make sense at the time. So sometimes, like Tom was saying, with photography and getting better at photography, you might not see then where the relevance is going to be in like 4 years, for example, but you probably in 4 years time you'll probably find that that's super useful, you know.
Yeah
Perfect.
And I've found that I had animation in the back of my mind for so many years, and I worked with 3D animators and 2D animators, and I just watched them in awe and be like, that's so cool. I had such an interest in it, but I'd never acted on it until probably 2-3 years ago, and I was like, you know what there's no reason why I can't do it. And I've not progressed probably as fast as I would have had I started back 8-9 years ago when I was watching these people, and I could have learned off them, because now I'm just learning off YouTube, and that's fine. And I've actually, since for our company, I've put together like a animated video. Not the best thing that's ever gone out in the world, but
it's a work in progress.
It's suddenly something that I was able to put my hand up and say, yeah, fine, I'll give it a go.
Gents, thanks for your time, and to everyone else, I hope you have a good day. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.